Bonjour again, and we're gonna now talk about the second part of the chapter 4 on the skeletal system, and we'll talk about chronic disorders usually associated with metabolic disorders. So before we do that, and before I talk about disorders, I just wanted to maybe refresh your memory about the regular turnover, the regular physiology of the bone, how they are made, and the cells that are involved in this turnover. So it's important because some of the diseases we're going to cover, I'm actually all of the diseases, the two diseases we're going to cover, are due to imbalance of the relationship between the buildup of bones and the digestion or the degradation of bones that is usually occurring during the turnover. So if you don't really understand the normal physiology, then you can't really understand the disease. So I just want to give you a brief, simple, straightforward explanation of muscle turnover, of bone turnover. So like any of other tissue, the bones have a turnover, which means that some part of the bone are going to die and other part of the bone are going to be regenerated by the system. So there's usually an inorganic part and an organic part. Inorganic part, it can be also considered as the dead part of the bone. Okay, so here, and actually the inorganic part of the bone is the strong calcified part of the bone. What makes the bone strong is the inorganic part, and you see here around 65% overall of your bones were already calcified and are inorganic. Obviously here we are talking about an adult, not a kid. And then there's this organic matrix for around 35%, and that's where the turnover is happening. That's why we call it the organics, and we call it a matrix because there are several types of cells, several types of tissues. There's a lot of things going on here. So that's the part that is important for us to understand. The inorganic part is actually made of calcium hydroxyapatite, which is this calcified, the calcified part that I was talking about. And it's actually also the follow-up of the different cell type that we'll talk about. So this part is important to understand because your bone is the storage of calcium of the body. So there's no other storage of calcium in your body except the bones. And if you need calcium for any other metabolic process, then you're going to have to dig into your bones to be able to release calcium and to use this calcium. If you don't need calcium, then obviously there is a reabsorption aspect, and then you're going to store calcium. So if you remember when we've talked about the endocrine system and the relationship between the thyroid and the parathyroid gland, the calcitonin and the calcitriol, then it's this relationship and those hormones that is creating the storage or the release of calcium from your bone. So it's obviously related to the disease we'll cover. Osteoporosis, for example, is obviously related to the endocrine system. We'll make a little bit of a connection there, but not too much because I don't want to make things more difficult than it is. So here are the main characters of bone turnover. Osteoprogenitors, osteoblasts, osteocytes, and osteoclasts. Okay, so we will define them one by one, and we'll try to see the relationship also quickly and understand their role in the regular bone turnover. But very quick, osteoprogenitors are actually, like the name progenitors, are the one that are those precursor cells that will differentiate into osteoblasts and osteocytes. Yeah, so these are like stem cells, if you want, of the bones. And if you need more bones, then you might differentiate into osteoblast. If you need less bones or less calcium, you need to release calcium, then they might differentiate into osteoclast. Okay, so those osteoprogenitors is where everything starts. And that's also where the endocrine system play a very important role. The osteoblasts are the one that can create bones, basically, and build the bones. Osteocytes are mature osteoblasts, and they are responsible for the inorganic part of your bones. And the osteoclasts are the ones that are responsible for the degradation. Okay, so let's start with the osteoprogenitors. You have a nice biopsy of the bones here, and you see here on top are those osteoprogenitors. Here, and then you have this different layer of cells. You can tell, okay, even if you don't know what the cells are, but you can see the shape is different and the organization is different. So there's another layer here, and if you look at the rest here, that's also a very different part of your bone. So this is the osteoprogenitors on top, floating in the matrix that stick to your bones, and that's where you have all the cells, the material you need to build up new bones. You have the layer here, we'll see later what they are, that are patrolling on your bones, and we'll see that they are osteoclasts mostly, and the one at the bottom here who are not moving anymore, and they are your bones, your inorganic part of the bones, and that's the osteocytes. Yeah, so osteoprogenitors are what we call pluripotent cells, mesenchymal cells, that can differentiate into the different type of cells we need for the bones. This differentiation is related to your endocrine system and will be happening throughout your life. Okay? So as when you're a kid and when you're a teenager, those osteoprogenitors are very active. When you become older and you are an elderly after, those osteoprogenitors are less and less active, but they are still responsible for the turnover. So let's see the osteoblasts now. Osteoblasts are able to synthesize and secrete collagen. They are also responsible for, when they mature and when they die, they become osteoids. So you see in this biopsy here that the osteoblasts are responsible for the synthesis and the secretion of collagen, so the rebuilding of the bones once they've been digested. There's many things that are going to be able to affect the osteoblast activity. Hormones, like I said before, but also estrogen for women. So in that case, it means that when women will go through the menopause, we're gonna see changes in the activity of the osteoblast. Vitamin D is also a precursor of activity of the osteoblast and is important. Overall, they have around 3 months of lifespan. Okay, so you produce a osteoblast coming from the pluripotent cells, the osteoprogenitors, and then for 3 months they're gonna play their job. They're gonna synthesis bone, they're gonna create bones, and then they undergo apoptosis. So I don't know if we've talked about apoptosis before in other chapter, but apoptosis is the regular cell death or cell cycle. Most of our cells are going to have a cycle of production, being able to be produced, and then being active, and then they're going to die. And that's the case for the osteoblast. And the osteoblasts are going to die within 3 months. Once they die, they become osteocytes, and they start to be responsible for the inorganic part. I'll show you a graph on how all of this is happening and how osteoblasts, what signal starts the apoptosis cycle for the osteoblast and how they become osteocytes after. But keep in mind, osteoblasts are responsible to rebuild bones, and they have a cycle of around 3 months. And after this cycle, when they die, they become osteocytes. On the other hand, osteocytes are mature bone cells. We call that mature because they are part of the osteoblast. They're coming from the osteoblast, and they are responsible for the strength of your bone. So once the osteoblast here, you see here a very nice microscopic picture of a bone. So the osteoblasts here are patrolling on top of the bone to do their job. Once they die, they actually migrate inside the bone and they become osteocytes. And that's how your bone is becoming strong. The way they migrate inside the bone is called a canaliculi. Okay, here it's actually channels. It's channels that allows those osteocytes to get in deeper into the bones and allow your bone to get recycled, if you want, with new osteocytes every 3 months. I'll show you later also how this is working. They are answering to a lot of different stress, but the most important stimulation of osteocytes. So what make osteoblasts transform, mature into osteocytes is actually mechanical stress. So when we talk about mechanical stress is obviously putting stress on your bone. And the best way to put stress on your bone is actually to have impact on your bone. So your muscle can put stress on your bone. When you contract the muscle, for example, you can squeeze the bones because of this contraction. So that's an important mechanical stress. Another stress is if you run, if you jump up and down, then you put obviously stress on the bone because of the mechanical impact on the bones, and that creates more osteocytes. So right away, without really talking about the disorder yet, but you can tell that if you are active, and especially if you have impact, if you have weight-bearing activities, it will make your bone stronger, because you're going to increase the osteoblast turnover and becoming more osteocytes. And those osteocytes are making the strength of your bone. So I said before that the osteoblast will have around 3 months of cycle. But if you stress the bone, then the stress is going to make this cycle faster. So rather than 3 months, it might be 2 months. Which means that every 2 months, you're going to have osteocyte produced and trying to increase the strength of your bone. So that's a good thing, basically, to increase the cycle, to increase the speed of the cycle. Those osteocytes also respond to change in calcium and phosphate concentration outside of the bone. So if you need, like I said before, if you need calcium, the only way for us to get calcium outside of the diet is to get the calcium from the bones, and then you need to release calcium from the osteocytes. So that's a way to weaken your bones, basically. The last type of cells I want to talk about are osteoclasts. And it's not by mistake that I want to present those osteoclasts at the end. It's because I think they are the most important. They are the most important because they are the starting point of the turnover. So the osteoclasts are part of the family of the phagocytosic cells, like macrophage. If you remember, during the immune system, we've talked about macrophage as being able to digest autogen and being powerful cells. Osteoclasts are the same. They are the macrophage of the bone, if you want. And they're able to digest your bone. They have powerful enzymes that they can release and free and on top of your bones, and then they can digest the bones. So here you have an amazing picture taken as electron microscopy picture of an osteoclast work. So you see the bone and the structure of the bone behind the osteoclast, and you see the osteoclast that's spread the dendrite. Here you see those small dendrites, so it looks like an octopus with many tentacles, and he's going to move over the bone, and you see what's behind the osteoclast is called the tail of the osteoclast, and that's the result of the digestion of the bones. So they can digest your bones, the resorption tail basically of the osteoclast. They are responding to also mechanical stress. So when you stress your bone because you are active, you activate the osteoclast, but they are also responding to cytokines and growth factors. So they are responding to inflammation, they are responding to immune system. Remember, they are part of the phagocytic cells, so they are immune system cells actually. So they respond to cytokine, they respond to inflammation, and they also respond to growth factors, especially for kids before puberty. Because they are the starting point of the turnover. If you want to be able to grow your bones, you actually need to resorb them first, and then you can grow. So that's why I said before that they were maybe the most important because they are the starting point. There's something I want to mention about this picture. So it's a great picture for you to understand the role of the osteoclasts. You see the tail, you see the digestion, and the effect on the bone. But I don't want you to think that this is how it works in the regular physiology, in the normal physiology. You don't see that. You are not supposed to see a tail or a digestion like this of an osteoclast, because you can imagine that if you had an osteoclast going crazy on your bone, then it could just digest your bone, and then it would create a weak point in your bone, and that would obviously create a risk for fracture. So it doesn't work this way. It works in combination, in synergy with the osteoblast. So when an osteoclast starts to digest the bone, right away and in the same time, an osteoblast is going to come in and start also to create in the same time. So I want to show, I'll show you another picture after to understand this complementary work between the osteoblast and the osteoclast. Okay, so keep in mind that this is also a teamwork between the two. What I want to talk about with this slide here, so we've talked about IL-6. This is okay. This is just to show you that some cytokines can stimulate the osteoblast. So IL-6 is a powerful cytokine that can stimulate the osteoclast. But what I want to talk about is this relationship between here, if we look at this graph here, is between the osteoblast and the osteoclast, and then the osteocytes. Okay? So how is that working? How we say one can mature into another one, activate another one, and then mature again into something else. Okay? So the same cell actually can have different states depending on the situation. So I want to talk about the rank system and the rank L system and the OPG system. Not because I want to make things difficult, but really because it's important to understand for the disease. Because a lot of the treatment that we'll talk about for osteoporosis and Paget disease are going to be important, are going to play a role in the rank system and the OPG system. So what is it? You have a osteoblast here on top. Okay, so let's start from here. You have an osteoblast, and this osteoblast is basically going to be stimulated. It could be stimulated by stress, it could be stimulated by the immune system. Okay, and then when this is stimulated, the osteoblast is going to turn into an osteoclast as a precursor cells, and then a mature osteoclast. Okay. The system that signal this maturation is the rank system. Okay, so osteoclasts have a rank receptors here. Okay, so this receptor here is going to be unique and it's going to be shaped in a certain way that can accept only one what we call a ligand. They can accept only one molecule that can bind to it. And this molecule is called rank L. Okay, rank L for the rank ligand. Ligand. I don't know if I put that in the slides, but this is how you spell it. So a ligand is a system that activates a membrane receptor. Okay, so this rank ligand is on an osteoblast or a precursor cells. And it's this only one that can bind to a rank receptors on an osteoclast. And then this osteoclast is now going to get the signal to become a mature and strong osteoclast and can start to digest and start the bone turnover. Okay, so this is how the normal physiology is working. And as any system in physiology, there's always a control or a negative feedback system. To be able to control that, let's say now you need to stop the osteoclast. How can you stop the differentiation? You need a system that can block the ligand. If you block the ligand, then there's no more link between the precursor and the osteoclast. So this ligand is called a osteoprostegerine, it's here, or OPG. Okay, so the OPG system is a protein carrier that can bind to the ligand here. So you see here is like a represented as a green ball, and then the OPG would just bind to it. If the OPG bind to it, then the ligand cannot come back to the rank system here and bind to the rank receptor. And so the OPG will basically block the system and stop the osteoclast to become mature. So you can see right away that if you're able to understand the system and manipulate the OPG and say, I'm going to design a drug that is able to activate the OPG or is able to reduce the OPG. In that case, then you can also control indirectly the rank system and control the differentiation of osteoclast. Yeah, so this is actually a very efficient way to control the turnover of your bones. So keep in mind this, because we will talk about this again for the treatment. The precursor cells will have the opportunity to, let me remove all of this because the slides start to be a little too busy. The precursor cells will have the opportunity to bind and to produce this rank ligand, and will bind to the only receptor that the rank has on the osteoclast precursor cells. Because of this signal, there is a whole cascade of events going to happen inside here the osteoclast, and then this osteoclast is now becoming mature and is able to digest the bone. Okay, so we'll talk about the disease. Okay, we'll talk about the disorder and the relationship between the two later. But how is the bone remodeling? So let's talk about the bone remodeling now and really see. Now you understand all the players. We're going to try to see how they work together to make your bones strong and the regular physiology of the bones. So you see how your bones are made. It's like a tree, almost like a tree. There are layers of cells and osteocytes, actually. Okay, so it's like trees, except that trees that don't really have several layers like this. Okay, a tree would just be one in the middle here, and that makes a tree. Okay, but you see for your bones, actually those are several circles that are distributed like this, and actually this helps the bone to be even stronger. And they are surrounding a vessel, a blood vessel, because you need to be able to feed those bones with energy, obviously, and substrate, and you also want to be able to get rid of the waste. Okay, so your bone is still, even if it's an inorganic part, is still producing waste, is still consuming some energy, and so on. So that's why it's efficient. It's organized around a vessel, and this vessel is called the vessel of the Arvesian canal, because the Arvesian canal is where the vessel runs. And when you have these different layers of the bones, we call that a lamella. Okay, so the lamella is those layers, those concentric layers of the bone. But the name doesn't really matter now. I just want you to really understand the idea. So here you have a real biopsy. Okay, so I'm always trying to show you the real thing, so you know exactly how it works. And if you look carefully, you see those black dots here are actually nucleuses of osteocytes. Yeah, so those are made of cells that are well organized around those Arvesian canals, around a vessel. Those usually change around 3 to 4 months. Every 3 to 4 months, one of those layers is going to change. And if you have an imbalance of this, that's called osteoporosis. Yeah, so we'll see that later. So how is that working? You have first, as a first step, the osteoclasts that are going to create this bone absorption. You have them here. Okay, so you see that those clasts that are digesting. So obviously this is an illustration, but it's pretty cute. But you see them, it looks like a commercial that is digesting, and they are using powerful enzymes to digest your bones and create a tunnel. That's why they create this layer of bones. But right away, like I mentioned before, those osteoclasts are covered here by another layer of cells, which are the osteoblasts. So they are pictured here in green and pink. It's like a pinky, so the green will be the osteoclast and the pink will be the osteoblast, and they work together. As the osteoclasts are digesting the bones, in the same time, as soon as they are done, and on top of it, you have the osteoblasts that are going to reform the bones. So there is no weak points, there's no delay between the bone digestion and the bone formation. And you create layers and layers of bones. Yeah? So there's no weakness in the system. Okay, so I hope it gives you a good understanding of the regular physiology of your bones, at least a good definition of all the cells we've talked about, and their role and how they work together, what can stimulate them and what can inhibit them. So we talk about mechanical stress being an important part, and we also talk about the calcium and the homeostasis of calcium being an important regulator of their activity. Now we can start to talk about the disease. So in the next lecture, I give you another. I can stop the lecture here, so it's easier for you to see. In the next lecture, we'll talk about Paget disease. Okay, so stay tuned. Thank you.